Welcome everybody to our second deep dive on the topic of social innovation challenges today. We're gonna learn about another innovative funding instrument for wicked social issues to spark social innovation. And actually, we are once again very delighted to have wonderful speaker with us today. Once again, we have speakers from the UK with us. We have Challenge Works here in the room, Caecilie and Tris. From Challenge Works will tell us a little bit on how they approach the issues of challenges and the challenge prizes that they organize and host. And I'm also very happy to welcome again such a diverse group of stakeholders here in the room from the social innovation ecosystem in Germany. We saw on our registration lists that we have people from state development banks here, foundations, impact investors, public administrations, officials from the federal and also from the state level, and many more who play a role in financing and promoting and scaling social innovation. So we're really glad about that. Our agenda for today. Today we're going to talk about social innovation challenges, and concretely we have an input on challenge prizes today. We're going to start with a little introduction on the Taskforce Financing Social Innovation. We're going to look back at our previous events, for those of you especially who haven't been able to come to our first deep dive. And then we're gonna have a wonderful input by our friends from Challenge Works, Caecilie, Hougaard, Pedersen, and Tris Dyson. We'll talk about their work, and then afterwards we have a little bit segment on what is already happening in Germany in the field of challenges and social innovation challenges. We have with us, among other people, the Sprint, the Agency for Disruptive Innovation, to remain in English, and two other organizations who will present what they are already doing in the field of challenges and what they will want to do in the field of challenges in the future. Then we have some room for questions, and then afterwards, this is basically like the second part of our event. Like last time, we're going to have some time for discussion, small breakout session, and then we talk about the next steps at our work here for the Taskforce Financing Social Innovation. Just real quick, this is the team. Today, it's only me and Angelika. Rafael is unfortunately sick, but this is the Financing Social Innovation team. We are hosting the Task Force for Financing Social Innovation. This is part of the larger project Platform for Social Innovation, an online platform financed by the Ministry of Education and Sciences. And this is what it looks like if you look it up on the internet. And what we seek to do with the Financing Social Innovation Task Force is to make a contribution to the transformation of the financing ecosystem for social innovation in Germany by doing several things. For one thing, we seek to facilitate broad stakeholder participation with actors from the various sectors that play a part in financing and scaling social innovation. So I already mentioned we have people in the room who work, for example, for state development banks, public administration, impact investing scene is present, and also the philanthropic sector. We seek to build bridges and break up silos by hosting these types of events. We also want to inspire and create space for exchange in order to, in the end, also develop new and innovative finance solutions for social innovation. Maybe look back real quick. We had our first deep dive around a month ago. We had Björn Struber here, and who's also here in the room with us today again. Hi, Björn. And Mara Ayoli from the UK Government Labs, who talked about outcomes-based instrument and specifically outcomes-based contracting and impact-linked finance, and had a really awesome discussion on these very innovative financing instruments that take into account the actual impact that social innovative organizations create and how this can feature into their financing conditions. And another thing that happened was just 2 weeks ago, just like a brief look at what you might have seen also on LinkedIn already. The German government now has an advisory board for social innovation with international experts that was inaugurated 2 weeks ago. And we were invited to present our work there that we are doing with you guys and the ecosystem and the course of the Task Force Financing Social Innovation, and present it and also connect with these international experts that came from the various different fields of philanthropy, finance, welfare, social entrepreneurship, and so on. And we're very happy to be able to also host the workshop sessions with this advisory board there. And most importantly, oversee in this context, very interesting results that came out of the workshop on facilitating access to funding. And we're very glad to have made these connections, and that the International Advisory Board was very interested in supporting us along the way in the next years and our endeavors here together with the Taskforce Financing Social Innovation. Real quick on this event today. This is the event series that we launched a month ago, the Deep Dives. The Deep Dives is an event series where we talk about innovative financing solutions, especially those that are happening abroad. We invite international experts to let them talk about the finance and funding mechanisms that have worked for them in their context to finance and foster social innovation. We seek to primarily create a space in which we can learn, be inspired, and be informed in what is out there, and then secondly, also think about, okay, what could be the rooms for application, what could be case studies in which these financing and funding mechanisms could work well in Germany. And then also, and this is why we do the breakout part, the discussion part in the end, to also do a first initial assessment of the effectiveness of these and applicability also for the German context, because obviously the context matters when you're talking about financing and funding instrument. And the idea is that in the next year, we take the next step with the task force. We're gonna look deeper into some of these instruments that we talked about, built already on top of these deep dives that we are doing right now, to work and to enter the conceptual development phase and work in smaller groups on actually creating concepts for financing instruments. We're going to talk about social innovation challenges, and we're going to have an input, as we said, in a second. But while you're listening to this input, we want you to keep these questions in mind while listening to our speakers, because these are the questions that we then later want to discuss a little bit further in our breakout sessions and then also in the plenary, which are for which social problems do you think social innovation challenges, and specifically challenge prizes, show great application potential in Germany? And what do you actually see as the biggest advantages and disadvantages of such a challenge compared to, for example, conventional grant, Projektförderung, that kind of stuff? All right, then let's move on. I'm super delighted to welcome our speakers today. That we have here with us today we have Caecilie Hougaard Pedersen, who works at Challenge Works, formerly Nesta, who will talk a little bit about on their work, the work that they are doing in the fields of challenges. And yeah, Caecilie, I would love to give you the floor.
Thank you. No, I think when you started, I think all the participants got muted, but I shall share my screen and get us going. Here you go. And here we go. So yeah, sorry. So this was just gonna a quick thank you to everybody for inviting us to come here today and to talk about challenge prizes. We're going to do a bit of a deep dive / somewhat whistle stop tour through challenge prizes and how they can be applied, what they can do, and what they are. So I will hand over to Tris.
Just very quickly to say, Challenge Works is a non-profit organisation set up in the UK, and our expertise is in challenge prizes, and we work globally with governments, corporates and foundations to set up and design and develop challenge prizes, and in some instances to set up capacity in country to do that. So we set up the Canadian government's challenge prize team, work closely with Innovationen on setting up their challenge prize capabilities. And as you can see, of the challenge prizes that we've directly run ourselves, which is different to the support we provided for others, we've run over 85 of them over the last few years. So we think it's reasonable to say we're at least Europe's leading centre of expertise in challenge prizes, and potentially the world's leading centre of expertise.
Great. So kind of quite simply put, challenge prizes offers like a series of incentives with a final prize given to whoever can kind of first or most effectively meet a defined goal. So I think challenge prizes offer quite a unique method of funding innovation, which offers this reward to whoever can first or most kind of effectively meet this defined challenge that has been set out. In its kind of most simple definition, they are like a financial incentive, a prize that's offered to whoever can first and most effectively meet the goal. So they are a mechanism for rewarding people who can solve problems. Challenge prizes are, most importantly, kind of problem specific. They focus on a really specific need, an opportunity or a barrier where innovators are really incentivized to solve. They are outcome focused, so they reward actual real world outcomes and results rather than kind of paying subsidies towards what may or may not happen in the future. And then they're open. So really importantly, challenge prizes are really agnostic about how a problem gets solved and who develops the solution. It focuses on the problem, and then the participants offers the solution and how to get there. So through this kind of open competition, challenge prizes can really tap into and engage a really broad community of innovators working together on solving a problem. And the competitiveness approach really accelerates the outcomes. And it also means that you can really include some of these like unusual suspects who wouldn't normally be working on this problem or be engaged with this problem. And this will normally inspire really new and better approaches to potentially really solving problems. So really by funding challenge prizes, foundations and governments, NGOs, corporations can really increase like societal impact, improve outcomes, and also kind of catalyze the policy change. So it's important to, one thing that's quite important is to just separate from the very beginning challenge prizes from some of the other really well-known prizes that might be out there. So challenge prizes operate really differently to something like a recognition prize, for instance, which is like the Nobel Prize, which will reward a past success rather than kind of incentivize new action. It operates quite differently to competitive grants because they kind of provide funding based on milestones, again, rather than kind of real world outcomes. And then whereas you might have an accelerator program that would, they will kind of like have a broad area of focus and fund innovators that is solving a range of problems within that space. Challenge prizes really kind of target a specific problem and then support a range of approaches on how to solve that problem. So it really like is a unique mechanism and very different to some of the other like really well-known prizes that that you might be familiar with. So just very importantly, challenge prizes can be used for pretty much any topic, but it can't be used for every problem. So it needs to be applied to the right kind of problem, and they work really well when you're clear about the problem, very clear about the problem, but you're not sure what the solution could be, what it might look like, or how you get there. That's when a challenge prize operate really well. There are some quite common misconceptions when it comes to what challenge prizes are, when to use them, and kind of what they can deliver. So the term prize or competition, challenge, they're kind of used interchangeably a lot of the time to describe different types of programs. Innovation challenges or competitions are quite a common idea, but a challenge prize, as we think about it, is quite a distinct model. And in reality, like a challenge prize is quite a multifaceted program that incentivizes and reward action to kind of solve this really defined problem. So they're tailored to fit a specific problem at hand, and then reward the action and impact by kind of funneling innovators through multiple different stages of support and increasing the level of both financial and non-financial support as they progress through the challenge. So with that kind of like slight whistle-stop tour, we'll just talk a little bit about the impact that they can have and how challenge prizes might help you. And I'll hand back over to you, Tris, for that one.
Yeah, I mean, we think of it, our prizes are always set up to achieve at least one of three things, sometimes all three things. or sometimes just really focused on one. The first is around creating breakthrough innovation. So essentially, really what you're doing with a prize ultimately is you're setting a goal with a final prize or reward associated with it. And that goal is by definition better than what can currently be achieved. And that goal can be very high or very low, depending on where you think innovators are able to get to, and different levels of financial incentive and other types of incentive as well. So ultimately, you're going to get these breakthrough innovations and new solutions. But it's not just about that. They're also about helping a community of innovators to thrive. So as Caecilie said, this is not just about a prize, you sit back and wait. There are stages. So you might have 20 teams competing to begin with, and then you might have 10, and then 5, and then 2, and then 1. Those teams are all coming up with radical new ways of doing things by definition. And you're giving them support and enabling them to thrive. And that community of innovators also go on to achieve impact, even if they're not the final winner. And the support that's given there is quite important. Often we lean in very much like a venture capitalist might, rather than a grant program where you might take a more passive role in supporting the innovators. And then the final one is around unlocking systemic change. So this definitely does not happen in all of our challenge prizes, but it does happen in some, which is that you're creating significant new innovations and breakthroughs in different markets and technologies. And that means there's an awful lot of new knowledge and understanding being generated. And that can often directly feed into regulatory change, policy change, or even shape the development of new markets, as those early stage innovations into a new market are ultimately setting the rules for how others come in. And there are some instances where that's been done very, very deliberately. But as I said, it's not always the case that wider systemic change is necessarily a feature of a challenge prize.
Great. So we'll have a quick look at how the kind of challenge process work, how you kind of build and design a really strong challenge prize. So you really increase the likelihood of success by challenge prize by really kind of clearly defining the problem and iterating on your prize design. So the key to like a really successful challenge really lies in making like the right decision quite early on in the kind of discover, define and design part of your challenge. So when you're kind of discovering and defining your prize, you are very much focused on the challenge, the topic, where you might want to bring in fresh thinking. You want to kind of like look at the landscape and kind of what's possible within your budget and with your partners. And then you should really make this kind of pragmatic decision around whether a challenge is actually the best approach for what it is that you're trying to achieve. Can you define a problem? Is it going to deliver the impact that you want it to deliver? If it is the right prize, then what is it going to focus on specifically? And just remember that, you know, like it's this thing that whereas you can apply a challenge prize across a really wide range of topics, but the problem needs to be really suitable for a challenge prize for you to get the impact that you want. So as you design your challenge, it's really important that all of this is factored in, that you create like really clear and straightforward criteria so that the innovators and judges or assessors, whoever's going to be looking at the solutions, are really clear on exactly what's expected. And you also want to design and build in this really clear structure that supports the innovators, that really supports the kind of most promising teams. And also you have the opportunity to kind of eliminate the teams that are the weakest or that aren't progressing. In that design phase, you really need to balance kind of your own interests against what's the interest of a potential innovator who's in the challenge. So there might be things that you would be interested in, like access to intellectual property or other things that you might want to kind of tap into, but you might want to, that might really negatively affect the number of entrants or the kind of nature of participants that you get. So you want to factor kind of all of that in in that design phase before you kind of start thinking about your launch and the actual delivery of your prize. So a challenge prize can be like quite a big investment in time and in resources, but if you get it right, then the payoff can be huge and the impact can be huge. So it is really about making those right decisions quite early on and getting the design right from the beginning. So when they are done properly, they are really multifaceted programs that brings together like really features from like some of these traditional prizes that I mentioned, grants, accelerator programs. They have these multiple stages where you can narrow down the range of teams and give them financial and kind of non-financial support. And while the timeline kind of varies across different challenges, depending on who you're working with, the problem that you're trying to solve, the impact that you want to see, kind of ambitious prizes typically are kind of multi-year programs. Most good challenges are not just about the kind of final deadline where the criteria is kind of applied, but they have these built-in stages where poorly performing teams can kind of be ejected, and then the best performing teams can kind of progress on as semi-finalists or finalists, and then winners at the end. So this is the kind of structure that we see as being the most likely to kind of achieve the impact that we're seeking when we launch and design a challenge prize. So it's just the last thing on that one is that it's also kind of like less risky to take part for innovators. We offer a challenge prize kind of offer them multiple stages where they can kind of work and get financial and non-financial support. And opportunities, and it offers opportunities to the funder and to us to kind of work with the innovators as well through these packages. So it is somewhat slightly less risky than other kind of funding mechanisms. And I think just a very quick kind of touch on what makes a good challenge. It needs to be problem driven. And to have like a really good challenge, you need to make sure that the problem is like really well defined and that there's a really clear goal for all of the innovators to kind of work towards. So whether that goal is kind of narrow or broad, it just needs to be really well defined so that everybody is kind of rowing in the same direction, so to speak. You want to make sure that the best solutions are going to be generated by opening up the problem to this wide pool of innovators. So if, for instance, there's already an organization that's a clear front runner, that has a unique set of skills or technology, it might actually be more beneficial for you to work directly with them rather than opening this up to a whole new group of innovators. You want to make sure that the prize you're designing will actually accelerate this progress. So that kind of competitive aspect of a challenge prize will kind of galvanize and push that action. So you just want to make sure that you can articulate how a prize would accelerate that creation of better solutions than you could do without. And then you want to make sure that it provides these incentives for to motivate the innovators and to create like really sustainable solutions at the end. So this is just kind of like the last thing on design and looking at challenge prizes, but we talked about kind of what they are, their impact and how to get them set up. But obviously funding bodies have policymakers have multiple kind of like a range of tools of what they can draw on to support innovation. So it's important to get the mechanism right for the right kind of problem. So this table just kind of outlines some of the differences between some common kind of innovation funding mechanisms and a challenge prize. So we won't go through kind of all of them in detail, but it's just to highlight that challenge prizes are distinct to and can complement a lot of other funding methods for kind of funding innovation. But they are very much characterized kind of by their outcome-based approach, which rewards impact and helps kind of mitigate risk. And then also this really low barrier to entry and highly visible outreach that kind of supports participation from a really wide range of field of innovators and sectors that really opens up a problem. So with that, it kind of means that a challenge prize is particularly suitable if you want to drive innovation to a specific challenge, but you don't have like a clear picture of what the solution would look like. They are particularly like suitable if you want to support early stage innovations, which might be too risky for you to attract investment, or too risky for you to work with. Or they could be really suitable if you want to raise the profile of a particular problem and really bring together innovators and people to work from a wide range of backgrounds to kind of work on the problem together. In those kind of three scenarios, a challenge prize and challenge prizes in general would be a really suitable mechanism to use. Challenge prize blueprints. Just a quick check on time, Pablo. We've got a couple of the challenge prize blueprints to talk to, maybe one or two of them, if we still have time.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Yeah. Go ahead.
Great. Do you want me to talk through?
Yeah,
both of them? Yeah, great. So at ChallengeWorks, we've kind of designed, like over the years, 6 different kind of blueprints for what challenge prizes could look like. They are very much intended to be like a tool that will help people think about how prioritizing like different aims might kind of shape the design of what their prize will look like. So there's no like one way to design a prize. It all depends on kind of what you've learned through your research and kind of refining phase, and how what you end up with might look very different to what you have envisioned in the beginning. So we'll just have a quick kind of snapshot look at 2 of the blueprints, but all of the blueprints you can find in a lot more detail in the practice guide that I know I've shared via email as well. So I think that can be shared with the wider audience as well. So we'll have a quick look at what we call a breakthrough prize. So with a breakthrough prize, the objective is very much to kind of create like transformative solutions to a really difficult problem. So a breakthrough prize will really often have like a really ambitious and tightly defined goal, so it'd be quite specific. It's very often focused on like a technological solution, and then you'll very often have offer a really large price pot, and also have a much longer time frame for solutions to be developed. So a really good example of a strong breakthrough prize would be our ChallengeWorks kind of longitude prizes on AMR. So it was a 10 million prize fund with 8 million in payout that looks to kind of reward the team of innovators that could develop a point of care diagnostics test that would conserve antibiotics for future generations. So it very much aimed to kind of stem that tidal wave of antibiotics resistance, and the test that needed to be developed needed to be accurate and rapid, affordable, easy to use anywhere in the world. It had to be scalable, so it had to be kind of ready for manufacturing and distribution, and it had to be safe to use. So with that, it opened all the way back in 2014, and then closed in 2022, and then we're just getting the final decisions on the outcome of the prize, which is due to come in early 2024. So a really large prize pot, a really long time frame, a really specific problem that needed a really specific solution. So that's a great kind of like example of what a breakthrough prize could look like. So looking at kind of like somewhat in an opposite end to what a breakthrough prize would be, something like a startup challenge. So for a startup challenge, we are often looking to kind of build early stage innovators' capacity, supporting innovations on their kind of entry to market. You'd very often have a much broader goal with a focus on bringing innovators and new ideas and sectors into the market or into the field. It will have a really strong emphasis on kind of building this innovator capacity. You'll be working with early stage innovators. And then you'll very likely see a really large number of entrants and participants that you'll need to funnel through multiple stages of support, both kind of financial and increasing levels of non-financial support. So there's kind of two really good examples of really good startup prices. So the European Social Innovation Competition, kind of along with the Water Discovery Challenge, which ran with the is currently running with the Off-White Innovation Fund. So the European Social Innovation Competition we delivered in partnership with the Commission and European Commission, and it ran for kind of 9 editions, and it kind of aimed at unearthing this potentially game-changing ideas from all corners of Europe, and then help them become viable, scalable social enterprises. So it aimed at supporting these early stage ideas and facilitating like a network across borders in Europe of kind of radical innovators who would be shaping the European society for the better. So each year, that challenge would like focus on a different topic. So anything from like developing green skills or reducing the environmental impact of the fashion industry, or creating like place-based approaches to young people. It kind of would change every year. Each cycle would run for 2 years, and every year it would launch in a new edition with a new kind of social innovation focus. The Water Discovery Challenge is then one of the challenges that is funded through the Off-White Innovation Fund. And again, it very much aims to kind of accelerate the discovery and development adoption of innovations into the water sector in England and Wales, so that the water sector faces really complex long-term challenges that really need new ways of thinking. So across 18 months, the challenge is bringing together kind of innovators from a wide range of sectors and supports them to kind of launch and succeed in the water sector. So the support includes both financial support and kind of 2 really comprehensive packages of non-financial support that then includes like a sector-led mentoring program as well. So both of these challenges saw like really big numbers in terms of entrants. You're working with quite early stage innovators. Both of them had really comprehensive packages of non-financial support that kind of allowed us to funnel through solutions to get to the right ones at the end. And I think with that, I hope that everyone has like a slightly better understanding of challenge prizes, how they work, when they work well, how they can kind of be best utilized to fund and support social innovation. And I think like funding and co-creating prizes will really enable you to support progress towards like a better world in a meaningful way. And I think, slightly conscious of the time, that maybe we'll stop here and take questions if there's still time for that.
Yeah, definitely. We already had. Thank you. First of all, thank you very much for this awesome presentation. I think it's totally fine. Actually, really great that we took a little bit more time to look at these like very concrete examples of how challenge prizes worked, and which the ones that you supported. And there's already a lot of questions actually in the chat, which goes to show like how you hit a nerve here and have attracted a lot of interest here among the German ecosystem. Just in order for the structure of the event, and because some of the people that we invited to give the idea on what they do in Germany, some of them have to leave a little bit early. I would like to first give them a little bit of room for their inputs, and then in 20 minutes we come back and have a longer Q&A session, if that's fine with you. Yeah,
that works fine by me. Yeah.
Perfect. All right, and you guys in the room, feel free to already to continue writing your questions in the chat. We're going to have plenty of time because I think this is a very important part of our event here to address those. But first of all, I would, or not first of all, but now I would like to ask Julia Ebenauer onto the stage, basically. Julia is joining us here, working for Sprint, the Federal Agency for Disruptive Innovation, and has agreed to tell us a little bit about their work at Sprint. Maybe you can talk a little bit about your organization for those of you who are not familiar with Sprint, and maybe talk about what do you at Sprint do already in the area of challenges, and why do you do it?
Sure. Thank you, Paulo. First of all, I'm sorry I catch the cold. So sorry for my voice, and if I have to cough from time to time. Fortunately, we're not in the same room. Yeah, you kind of catch me right in the middle of one of our selection events here for the challenges. That's why I have to leave early, unfortunately, but it's a very exciting day today for us because some of our participants from our long duration energy storage challenge are here today to pitch and to apply for the second round of our challenge. Yeah, but I'm really happy that I have a bit time to join you. Thank you, Tris and Caecilie. That was very inspiring, also from a German perspective. Right, I'm working for the Federal Agency for Disruptive Innovation, as Pablo just said. I just joined recently in September, actually, and I'm part of the challenge team. So we have the two strains somehow, like the normal project approach, where you can just approach us and tell us your idea. That's a very open call. And the other one are the challenges, where we define a goal or a problem, and then people can apply in order to hopefully solve this problem. So that's our challenge track. And more or less, the Federal Agency for Disruptive Innovation was established in 2019 in order to kind of fill a gap, to bridge the famous valley of death that some people, especially that are doing research in fields of technology that are high risk and high cost, have to face, and where they do not get private funding yet, just because it's too risky. Yeah, our Bundesregierung decided to have us and try to bridge this gap. Let's see what will be in 10 years. Hopefully we will still exist, but we're doing our best to make it possible. What are we doing in terms of challenges? We do challenges. That means we adopted this model of challenges for us and introduced this in 2021. And we are trying to gather visionary teams that work on radically new solutions. The goal is always to compete in finding the best avenue for tackling the grand challenges of our time. That means, maybe similar to Challenge Works, we also focus on the outcome and not on the path towards it. So our teams are very free to do whatever they want in getting there, in getting to the end of the challenge. We follow a step-by-step model. This gives our mostly very highly ambitious teams the chance to realize their ideas while continuously putting them into tests and ensuring that only the best teams continue to receive further funding. And by doing so, we use rather, for Germany at least, a rather unconventional financial tool, the pre-commercial procurement, which is actually a very good financial tool, but it's not often used in Germany. It enables us to give out our funding on a very flexible basis. So the teams don't have to report so much back to us. We just fund their idea and their way. And in the end, we judge the outcome, but it's very unbureaucratic compared to other vergaberechtliche things. I don't know the word in English, which is very sad because it's such a German word, Vergaberecht. Yeah, but yeah, that makes us very flexible also for us, but that's the most important thing also for our teams that really have the financial freedom to focus on their innovation, and that is what we want them to do. At the moment, we have 5 ongoing challenges. The spectrum is very broad, so we were aiming to find broad spectrum antivirals. As I said, at the moment, we are just in the middle of our selection event for our long duration energy storage challenge. Then we have another challenge where we are trying to find a way to bind carbon economically in products. We just launched our circular biomanufacturing challenge. And we have a so-called Sprint Funke, which is our little mini challenge, a spark, that is focusing on tissue engineering. And there's more to come. So very soon, on the 4th of December, actually, we are launching our next challenge on the topic of a fully autonomous flight. So yeah, that's in short to answer your question, Pablo.
Awesome, thank you, Julia, for giving us an idea on your work, and I'm very excited to be continuing this dialogue with you and Sprint and all the experience you've already made when financing disruptive innovation also for the field of social innovation in the future, and working together with you guys in that field. All right, then we're moving on to our next speaker. While I try to unpin you again. There you go. We have Yasmin Olteanu here. She's a professor of entrepreneurship at the BHT Berlin University. And as I understood it so far, Yasmin, hi, there you are, is engaging or will engage in a project on societal challenges together with the state of Berlin, and is here to talk a little bit more on like what do you actually want to do there, and why you chose the concept of challenges for your endeavor.
Yeah, first, thank you very much for the invitation, and also thank you very much for all the input I already got. So I'm already very inspired now. But let me give you a broad overview of what we do at Berliner Hochschule für Technik. So we have the concept of challenge in its diverse forms in all three of the columns of a University of Applied Sciences. So we integrate it in research and transfer and in teaching. In research, as you already mentioned, Pablo, we are starting a project that is called Impacting Berlin, where we try to define the grand challenges that the metropolis is facing, and we aim at categorizing the startups and startup ideas and innovations that are already out there in regard to potential contributions to solutions to these challenges. So this is a bit what we look at in research, and why do we think that's relevant? Well, because it is relevant. The problem with research, I mean, at universities of applied sciences, maybe less, because all of us, the professors, we come from practice originally, right? So we feel it in our hearts that we want to create something that is meaningful and useful for everybody out there. But still, having really focusing on challenges gives us the security that we are doing, the research that we do is something relevant, something that is up to date, and something that we can actually hand over to others who might really benefit from it for, let's say, for the contribution to the big solution, or the contribution to solutions for the big challenges that we are facing. In regard to research and transfer, the bridge, we since the beginning of the year have a new project that started together with 4 other universities of applied sciences here in Berlin. It is called Zukunft findet statt, and I thought of about a catchy translation of this title in English, but I didn't come up with one. So the translation would be Future Finds City, but somehow this doesn't work. So I will keep it to the German version, Zukunft findet statt. And together with these other universities of applied sciences, we are engaging in topics that deal with making Berlin more resilient in regard to topics all around climate and health. In order to do so, we are collaborating very closely with the communities around our universities, and we also will be or have already installed some real-life labs. One is at the Impact Hub here in Berlin, and the other one at the Johannes-Stift Neukölln, so that we really have this focus on climate and health covered. And what is really important for us is that we do not define the problems with an academic mind, but that we really engage with the communities and try to come up with really relevant problems together with them, so that together with them in an engaging in different engaging activities, we can try to come up with solutions. And then last but not least, in teaching, we also apply challenges in several seminars. For example, this semester we worked together with the district of Marzahn-Hellersdorf on the topic of climate communication, because the district has experiences large challenges when talking about climate at all, because the term itself has a negative connotation apparently in the district. So what we do with the students in my seminar is that we try with the entrepreneurship tools that we have at hand, we try to really understand challenges of the inhabitants of the district and try to identify challenges that have to do, without using the term climate, we use the term good or better life quality, but we try to find challenges that really have an overlap with the topic of climate, so that we, in a second step, and this is what the students are working on now, can develop activities, projects, or even founding ideas that can tackle these challenges, and at the same time maybe bring a bit more positive connotation to the term and all, like the whole topic of climate. And maybe one more example before I close. We had, like last semester, in the summer semester, we actually had a challenge that had to do with financing. We were working with an NGO, a conservation NGO, Chances for Nature, a German NGO, that was wondering if there is maybe a more innovative way to channel more funds into their direction than just simply asking for grants. And particularly, they didn't want to copy the large NGOs that just buy addresses of people and send out thousands of letters to make them engage in donations. So our students in the seminar Sustainability Challenge worked on that challenge and developed ideas of how the NGO could maybe come up with more, some innovative approaches to generate funding for their very valuable activities. This is maybe a short overview on how and how we work with challenges and what we have done so far.
All right, thank you, Yasmin, for that overview. And then we're going to move now to our last input from the German ecosystem. We have with us Hougaard. He's a technology transfer officer at the Interdisciplinary Competence Center for Grant Challenges, organized by Vista Management. And I believe, as Yasmin has already mentioned at the beginning of her input, is that I think this is a good opportunity to get inspired and learn from an organization like Challenge Works on how things can be undertaken. And I understand, Hougaard, that you're also in the beginning of a larger process that you want to host in the field of challenges. So maybe if you can talk a little bit about what you do and how that the topics, the context of a challenge actually was the most useful way to go for you.
Yes, thank you very much, Pablo. Hello, everyone. And as you said, I promised my boss that I will come back with a lot of input than giving input today, because I will learn a lot. I was also writing very productively notes. I am Hougaard and I work for Vista. I hope I work already for the center, which is not done yet. I work for Vista Management. Vista Management is a subsidiary of the city of Berlin, in charge of site development and typical economy support generally. And its role was and is to develop area after the fall of the wall area in the southeast of Berlin, to develop it into an integrated area for science, innovation, and urban life. And this is what we did in the last 30 years. This is Adlershof, the science park in Adlershof, close to the surrounding area. And I'm telling you this because this is how we get to challenges. In the way of developing this structure, the goal was to create jobs. The goal was to support companies to grow, technology-oriented, and to create clusters for technology. And in 2018, a new strategical decision was made, and this is where the word challenge got into our word. If I want to frame myself in the context of this meeting today, I would say we do challenges based on the challenge-oriented strategy that we developed 2018 or started developed 2018, that changed our perspective into the support of the economy in Berlin from technology oriented. We want to support biotech, for example, and we build for them the infrastructure they need and design the formats and the support, the network and the clusters and the whole ecosystem around that, or we support them by that, to a challenge-oriented vision of our role in the future of supporting the economy, which means we ask ourselves not what technology should we support, but rather what challenges are now there, and who are the people working on it in Berlin and in the region, and what role can we play to offer the adequate environments and formats and support mechanism. And in this whole 2 years process of strategy development, the Center for Grand Challenges was born, which is the further development of our technology challenges. And the vision, the idea is to have one place where all the needed actors for a specific challenge should come together and work on that. And this center should be very dynamic and interchangeable, that you can each X numbers of year adapt the challenges. And I'm talking a lot in the future because in the process of now developing the structure behind this center and securing the financing and creating the organizational structure, we decided that we cannot wait. So we created another path, which is the bottom-up approach to these challenges, and in this case, the grand challenges, which means for us, we start working. We discovered, and we say in Adlershof, in our 16 research institutes, 1,200 companies and the ecosystem around them, solutions for big challenges are being elaborated every day. So we started to create these ecosystems, and we work on 3 focus topics now, which is climate protection and energy, circular materials economy, and sustainable mobility. And for these, we created several low budget, low scale formats to basically bring the people together that are now working on the challenges and support them and accelerate their creation of the solution. This is from one side, and on the other side, we are also getting into these ecosystems and we participate in challenges. So we did not make it yet to create challenges, but we are participating. One example of that is Circular City Challenge. It's the 2nd year in a row we were participating there as a challenge provider and partner, and we collaborate also with the district government, district management to approach this. Yeah, so this is mainly what we are working on now.
All right, thank you very much. To give a little idea about what you're doing at Adlershof Grand Challenges. And now, since there were so many questions already in the chat earlier at the input of Challenge Works, I'd like to open the room now for some Q&A, because I think there are some valuable insights still to be gained. Angelika, I think you had an eye on the chat. Maybe you can let us know what questions were in the room.
Yes, thank you very much. So yeah, Caecilie, I have a bunch of questions for you, actually. So I'd like to start with Anna Bata. Are you still in the room? Because there are 2 questions of you on the winners and the long-term funding. Maybe you just want to throw the question in the room yourself.
Sure, I can do that. I hope there's connection. Greetings from Bremen today. I think my most important question is really related to whether you have data on the follow-up funding. My reason for asking this question is I started a tech school for refugees 8 years ago, and it was very much based on the idea that the community needs to co-create the solutions. And what we have seen is that we have created a solution that by data works much, much better than what the government solution does. However, getting follow-up funding from the government has been very, very complicated because we've developed a solution that is more effective but works outside of the system. But it means that we have to get project funding all the time, and that doesn't make it sustainable. At the same time, I don't want to change what we are doing to fit the rules of the government because we will have less impact. So my question is really about, do you have data, do you have experience on when we're developing these innovative impact solutions, how do we also make sure that they're not just a one-time thing, but it's something that also can scale in the future? Thank you.
Yes, it's a really good question, and it's definitely tricky always when you're funding something, particularly if it's something early stage, to make sure that you're building and funding something that's sustainable and long term. Quick question, quick answer is yes, we do have experience with it. We do have data on it. We do build it into our challenge prizes, so it's part of when we kind of like look at the structure and the criteria. So we'll have a problem like that they're looking to solve. When we look at kind of building the judging, the selection criteria of who we're working with, we are very specific about building in a kind of environmental sustainability, financial sustainability into how we're looking at projects. What are, like, once we kind of exit them out, even if they are a winner, what's the progression that they're going to have afterwards? Because we don't want to just fund solutions that kind of then run until the funding is out and then they kind of don't go anywhere further. So we do have data on it. I'm more than happy, Angelica and Pablo, anyone who kind of like wants my email after this call, feel free to kind of share it. I'm more than happy to kind of jump on a call, Anne or anybody else, or drop me an email if there's something specific. If I can help, I'm more than happy to. We do have data on that, but I think like the main thing is that we build it into the core of the challenge. So that it's built into how they are developing their solutions, that they have a path forward once they stop working with us.
Brilliant, thank you.
Okay, so the next question.
Sorry, can I just double check? Was there a second question from Anne as well, or was this the question? Sorry.
This was the main question. The first one was very short. I was wondering how many winners there are, if it's the winner takes it all or first past the post.
Oh, I see. Okay, so no, that varies again from prize to prize. So some challenges, some challenge prizes, you'll have kind of the financial package will kind of maybe start already at semi-finalist level. So you'll get finances and non-financial support as a finalist. You'll get finances and non-financial support as a finalist, and then the final winner will then get additional funding after that as well. So we'll kind of work with them through the progression. That would be the design of some challenges. Some challenges might have only non-financial support at the first stages, and then the finances coming at the end. Some challenges, again, might have just one winner. And for instance, the discovery challenge that I mentioned in the presentation that's come from the Offward Fund, we are announcing 10 winners in January. So it just depends on the structure and what the problem is we're trying to solve and the kind of ecosystem we're trying to get into. So with the water sector, there's so many challenges that having just one winner, it wouldn't necessarily make sense. We need to be much broader on the solutions that we're funding. So for that, the challenge is slightly broader. So we have a broader spectrum of winners that's been funneled down from the initial entrance. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Then we had another question by Björn Struber on the stats. Björn, are you still there? Do you want to state the question?
Yeah, sure. Maybe I add even another one. So the first one is like just giving us a little bit of a feeling who is funding what. So also in terms of, are these philanthropists, are these more governance, are these also international development organizations? And what are these different funders interested in? And another question is a bit, I'm a super advocate for everything outcomes-based, results-based, and competitive. However, I feel that the startup challenges are sometimes, like the term is misused. So I see a lot of competitions that are just taking the first step. Best idea wins something, a jury is making a judgment, but it's not about outcomes at all. And how do you feel about that?
So the first question around kind of who's funding what kind of challenges, I can just talk from our perspective, obviously, but a really wide range of kind of actors in that field. So just over the last kind of like, if I look back over the last 5 years or so, from kind of like a more private side, you know, we work with like JP Morgan or the Western Family Foundation, Toyota, BMW Foundation, Google, BBC, like they are like big, they are kind of like big, more private companies that are in the challenge prize space as well, looking to fund. We only work on social innovation at Challenge Works, so they are only funding things that have a social kind of good aspect of it. But alongside that, we are also working very closely with obviously UK government, Canadian government, and big kind of like both smaller governmental departments and foundations, but also bigger kind of more global organization governments as well. So the Discovery Challenge that I mentioned before as well is for instance funded by the Ofwat Innovation Fund, which is the water sector's regulator in England and Wales. So the funding is coming directly from the customers, funneled into an innovation fund that then goes back and is going to support the customers out there as well who are paying into the fund. So it's a really wide range on who's putting money into the pot in terms of like how challenges are designed. What kind of things they are funding is a really wide range. On Challenge Works, we're kind of focused on like a couple of different missions where we try to kind of tailor what it is that we're doing in which space into a couple of different missions. So we try to funnel it into that, whether we're kind of looking at global health or kind of building resilient societies. So that we're kind of like looking at specifics there, and how we work with our partners is a combination of two things. So it can either be someone coming to us saying like we really like want to scope this out, we want to look at like how we can include a challenge prize, we want to run this, and then we look at designing it with them. Or we do a lot of research into kind of innovation deserts and stagnant sectors in our own research department as well, where we would design a challenge and then kind of do the outreach to find who would be the best and appropriate and best placed funder to then fund it once it's been designed. So I can't be more specific than that on this call, Björn, but again, if you are looking for like more like specifics, I'm more than happy to like drop it in an email. I just don't have the stats right in front of me now, but again, like feel free to drop me an email. And I think, what was the second part of your question? Oh, the prizes that don't focus on my initial feeling is that the prize that you're slightly describing, it wouldn't be what I would classify as a challenge prize, that it might be an innovation prize or a startup prize in some sense, but a challenge prize is very much kind of outcome focused, and it builds in these like different stages of support. And I think that's why it's been great to be here today to kind of like talk about it in a lot more detail, because there is, you know, globally, we use the words prize and competition and challenges. You know, you have grand challenges and then you have challenge prizes, and you've got innovation challenges and recognition prizes. So the words are used so interchangeably that it can be really different. It can be really difficult to actually identify what exactly this thing that they're calling a prize, exactly what is it? Is it a challenge prize, or is it a competition that's just awarding a winner, but with no like real follow-up afterwards? When we, like with Anne as well, like when we talk about that impact side and the outcome base, it's something that we build into the challenges, that we are interested in seeing that kind of long-term impact from what it is that we're doing. Really ambitious prizes will have an impact timeline that would go way beyond the actual like kind of challenge timeline. And we'll continue with the monitoring and the kind of check-ins with the teams that have gone through the challenge, so that we stay on top of like what we've actually kind of pushed out in the world. But I think a prize where you would kind of enter, be judged, and then get money, I wouldn't necessarily classify that as a challenge prize directly.
All right, thank you very much. And then we have a question from Michael Unterberg in terms of the sponsors and further examples on regional levels. Michael, are you there, and do you want to unmute yourself?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm there. Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Very interesting from all the presentations, but especially from the Challenge Works, because really interesting track records of these big challenge prizes you organized. First part of my question, mixture of private and public funds, you already answered. For me now it's clear that you experience both. And just from our perspective, we are regional development bank at the city-state of Hamburg, and we have right now an annual budget for a kind of normal grant program in the area of social innovation, and we are looking with the stakeholders into ways to make it more challenge-oriented. And from this perspective, all the examples you showed, and also the example of Spring.D in Germany, those are very big challenges on the national level or even the European level, with a lot of support involved for the people, for the projects or the actors that enter these challenges, and a lot of support on the way, and then a big prize money on the end. Have you any examples of more smaller scale, regional oriented challenges where you can bring together people from a certain regions towards a certain regional challenge, and then this what works as a challenge prize, or do you need this big scope in these kind of organizations? Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. The answer is no. You don't need the big scope. You need to just have a really well-defined problem, and that problem can be regional. It can be localized. It means that you're likely tailor a smaller pool of innovators, but that's not, like that might be part of the challenge that you're building. But the main part for a really strong challenge prize is that you can really clearly define the goal or the problem for people to work on, and that can be a regional thing, and you focus on that, or it can be on a more global scale. In terms of examples, actually, and we kind of whistled through some of the examples, but the European Social Innovation Competition that we ran, it ran on a pan-European level, but the challenges, the way that the challenge statement, the way that the problems were framed, would be kind of applied into a more localized setting. So the way that challenge worked is that we worked with innovators on a more regional, local way. So we provided them with mentors and access to kind of the local ecosystem, because something that might be really innovative and impactful in Hungary might not be in northern Germany or in southern France. So it all depended on what your local ecosystem was, what region were you in, where were you based, and what was your kind of country like. So even though that the challenge was kind of pan-European, they were all judged on the same criteria, but the criteria were applied into a local setting so that you could apply it, whether something was innovative, whether someone would have be sustainable, financially and environmentally sustainable, whether it could deliver long-term impact. All of that was judged on a more kind of regional level, bringing in people who would know the ecosystem of where the particular entry was based, so that we could bring that aspect in, because otherwise you can't compare and contrast something that's being developed in France and to something that might be kind of rural Romania. So we had to have that kind of regional, localized aspect of the challenge as well. So it works, it can work. You can both separate it and focus regionally alone, or you can run something bigger, but then you can kind of regionalize and localize your selection process kind of halfway through the challenge as well. Does that answer? Yes?
Okay, great. So yeah, we have two more questions. One from Nicholas Peters on collaboration and how to reach systemic change.
Hi. Thanks for all the presentations. So I'm from Together Foundation, a quite recently started collective of people that use their different kinds of of resources to tackle big socio-ecological transformations. And we have the strong belief that if you really want to tackle the big issues like defending our democracy or transforming the school system in Germany, you need to have like dozens or even hundreds of players in that field to actually work together. So how can a challenge prize support such a collective action? Maybe also based on an example also.
So sorry, so just want to double check on the question. Is the question more around bringing, like, how does it bring like the different players together?
Yeah, the question is like, do you probably have like an example where a challenge prize actually fosters or enabled a collective action, bringing together like many players of a field?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think of something that's like really recent, but I think they do very much kind of like incentivize collaboration and this kind of cross-sector engagement. And I think the work that we're currently doing with the kind of the Ofwat Innovation Fund, for instance, that we're running multiple kind of different challenges within the same fund, but that has very much brought together both the kind of policymakers, regulatory aspect of the sector, working with the kind of privatized water companies, the multiple different companies that are sitting across the country, all working together and kind of shaping what the fund should do and what are the challenges that the challenge prizes should focus on. So kind of doing that collaboration of not only the design, but also the kind of developing of solutions afterwards. And out of that has also come, through this collaboration and that kind of cross work, that's how the Discovery Challenge kind of came about last year, is because there was a real need to actually, we had kind of policymakers, we had the regulator, we had the environmental agencies, we also had all of the privatized water companies. But what we needed was actually all of the startups and the innovators that were sitting in all of the kind of parallel sectors, that we could bring in the innovations that could kind of parachute in from the side. So we're talking like innovations that currently sits in agriculture or energy or smart cities. All of those innovations and technologies could really be applied to a lot of the issues that were sitting in the water sector, for instance, but we were kind of inventing the wheel twice, you know, because we had it too close in terms of what we were doing. So we kind of went back and started on working on like, how do we open it up? We thought we had it really open, but we actually need to open it up even further. And that's when that kind of startup challenge, the Discovery Challenge, came about, that really focused on outside sector engagement. So bringing in, you know, people who might have worked in smart data or open data in energy. How do we kind of bring that solution into water? How do we look at smart bots and AI solutions in another sector, and how do we apply that? How can that be applied in the water sector to kind of accelerate some of those solutions that we need in that sector? So within that work, we've really kind of done a lot of those like stakeholders across government, policy, environmental, financially regulators, water companies, and now the outside sector, that we regular now all are in the same room, all collaborating and working on the same problems. And I think a main thing to do to get to that kind of wanting to do that systemic change, it's slower. It is slower. It's like a heavier train that needs to get pushed, but it's all about getting to the root of the problem, so that if you want to do that, you know, like if you are looking at like the kind of high level challenges, you're kind of not getting to the root of where the problem actually is. And that means that the challenges that there will continue to develop because you haven't addressed the root problem. And, you know, in that big collaborative space that we were in, the root problem seemed to be that we were moving so slowly because we were not bringing in all of the existing technology that was outside. We weren't, you know, the sector wasn't even looking there. So we needed to bring those in to then accelerate how we could kind of address some of the real problems within the sector. So I think it's about being really open, bringing everybody in and being willing to listen, and then actually being really specific and strict with what is the root problem, like what is the core problem that we need to actually address to then have this kind of systemic change impact that we really want the prize to see. Good. I got a thumbs up. So
okay, great. So Anya, you had a similar question on that. Is there anything else that you'd wanted to add, or is still anything unclear?
Exactly, as if Nicholas had read my mind, and we were just thinking along the same lines, actually. Maybe my question was more put out of the experience of working in emerging countries where we are using a lot of challenge funds for innovation. And in some of these challenge funds, actually, there's a requirement of the innovators or the applicants to propose a cross-sector collaboration. It's inbuilt into the application process because it is assumed that innovations will not emerge just by one single organization, but so the applications would be done by a combination, a consortium consisting out of public sector, private sector, social sector organizations, and then submitted as a consortium. And the other ways how the challenges have been discussed have been in relation to scaling up the solution, where then the prize would be that the solution would be actually replicated and scaled by government agencies. And maybe that refers back to the question that was posed by, sorry, what's his name from Hamburg? Michael. Yes. Yes, exactly. Maybe that's something that you had in mind. And I'm wondering, Caecilie, if there is anything that you can add to this from your experience, which prices are actually set up to also scale a solution with engagement by government?
Yeah. So we actually, like, one of the blueprints that we have kind of developed and that we didn't get a chance to kind of talk through in the presentation because there's too many and takes too long, but it is in the practice guide, is that we do have a blueprint specifically kind of focusing on a scaling prize. We do design them and develop them as well. It's with something like it can either be the scaling part of a challenge. I think in my experience of having run multiple ones is that depending on the problem or what it is that you're trying to solve, it might be like a startup prize or a spotlight prize, where the second stage or like the kind of winners phase actually is more like a scaling prize, where you start really focusing on impact at scale and kind of clearing that potential kind of route to market. That's if you've got that long timeline where you can funnel innovators through. Sometimes it might be more appropriate to simply design a scaling prize where you're actually creating kind of scaling initiatives as part of your kind of challenge prize characteristics. You want to look for like really quantifiable targets that the innovators can kind of provide you with. And you will very likely work with a much smaller pool of innovators because you'll need these will be people who have, you know, like they would have already kind of worked in the space before and been able to evidence some sort of results that they're now ready to kind of accelerate and scale. So we do run them specifically with that focus, but we can also build them into a second stage of a challenge prize. There was a second part of your question, Anya, as well. Just remind me. Oh, sorry, you're on mute.
The second part would be in relation to whether maybe engagement by government it would be a part of maybe the prize that you can win, referring back to also Anne's question earlier. What if we say the person or the organization selected, if this is successful, then it will be scaled across different government agencies? Yeah.
So there was a thing about consortium as well, I think, in that question that I just remembered, which is all of the chat. Again, it's like in the presentation that it's about making the decisions really early on when you design a challenge prize. And we have challenges that runs both where you're open to a consortium and multiple partners, and it depends on the problem. You might have a problem that needs collaboration in the entrance straight away. And then we've got kind of smaller challenges where we kind of work with one innovators and they might have subcontractors, but we kind of focus on the core one. So it works in both ways. It very much just depends on the problem and the scale of what it is that you're trying to solve. In terms of like kind of the government and public input into where you'd want to scale, for instance, with discovery, where we are looking at like private sectors, startups who are currently working, but it's something that needs to then move into a privatized sector that needs to be regulated by government. So there's like different stages. But what we've done, for instance, in that one, we've built in the scaling aspect into the second stage of the challenge. So the first stage was very much kind of ideation of the idea and making sure that it would work in the sector. And the second stage that they'll move into next year is very much about kind of socializing trials and scaling and being ready to be kind of that it can be rolled out and applied and be viable across a brand new sector. And with that in mind, there's loads of regulatory and government kind of aspects of that. So what we build in really early on is that collaboration between the government and the organization. So having mentors from the right places to come in to be able to support and provide advice and guidance as they are developing, so that we don't end up with a fully shaped solution that then can't actually be applied where it needs to be applied because of for various reasons. And if they had been addressed much earlier on, then we could have kind of resolved those. So if it's something where we need governments to be part of the scaling process, we bring them in a lot earlier in the development phase so that we don't kind of clash at later stages. We don't often have, if it comes in like funding, we don't often have like new funding coming in at different stages. And I think there's only one prize that I remember. I think it might be in the deck I shared with all the case studies, which can be shared with everyone at a later stage. I think it's the open banking one. But I can't remember off the top of my head. But we have had one or two examples where the impact of a challenge or the kind of success of it have meant that we've had investors kind of come up wanting to come in and fund kind of halfway through to say, this is working really well. We want to get involved. We have this pot. We were going to do a grant, but we actually want to put it into a third winner or something that you're doing here. And then we can then work with either the government or the fund or whoever has kind of like partnered on the original price to include someone additional in. It's not often that it happens, but I have seen it once or twice. Yeah.
All right. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. There are a few more questions, but unfortunately we're running out of time and we want to start the breakout sessions now. But we're happy to discuss, have like a little discussion after the sessions as well. So what's going to happen now? We are going to go into the breakout sessions. We're going to group you into 5 to 6 people. And we'd like to discuss for like 15 minutes the questions that we've mentioned before. We're going to put a link into the Miro that we'd like to use where you can capture all the discussion and all the information. And then after 50 minutes, we're going to come back into the plenary to have our final discussion. So just for you to keep in mind. So question number 1 is going to be, for which social challenges or for which social problems the social innovation challenges show great application potential for Germany. And then we'd like you to discuss the biggest advantages or disadvantages of a challenge compared to conventional grants.
Just I was just wondering if there are like some spotlights, some interesting things and pieces that came up in the discussion concerning the applicability and usage of challenge prizes here in Germany. If someone here wants to let us know what were discussion points that you talked about in your breakout rooms. Is there anybody?
I'm happy to go first. So on the topics that we discussed that this could be a great solution for in Germany was maybe not so surprising, integration into the job market of foreigners. But also we were talking about loneliness, so cutting across different generations. We also talked about mental well-being, especially around youth and their psychological well-being post-COVID. And we discussed also gender diversity on how to get more girls into STEM areas. So that was the 4 things, but in the group we also discussed that it's interesting that it can be used on XL challenges, but also extra small challenges, so very localized, or it can be used on a more national scale. Anyone in the group, feel free to jump in.
Interesting. Caecilie, did you have you already facilitated challenge prize in one of these areas mentioned?
Yes. I was actually just interested in hearing if they managed to actually kind of identify the challenge question or the problem, specific problem, because these were still quite broad. No, one thing I was just going to say for Anne and whoever was in that group is that we ran a really interesting challenge called the Explorer challenge, which focused on kind of STEM learning and an I, but it was one of the only ones that we've run with young people, like children, underage people. We collaborated with the government, and we collaborated with schools across the country, where we worked directly with teachers in kind of developing these kind of competing teams across the different schools, introducing AI and STEM learning and different ways of learning. And also just on that focus, because I've done another challenge on that as well, one of the European Social Innovation Challenges focused on kind of one of those new skills and rethinking local approaches. And one of the finalists of that team back in 2018 was a Swedish company called Imagilabs, who designed an app for like coding to get girls into STEM and kind of tech and AI. And they went on, the 3 funders have gone on to be on the Forbes 30 under 40 list, and has kind of raged in it again, now gotten to a point where they've have de-risked themselves so much that they're now out in kind of public private investment and getting private investment in to grow their company. So that's a good success stories for how one of those challenges can work if done right. So yeah, definitely done that. I think the rethinking of local approaches can be a big challenge, but it can be focused on really localized solutions. So yeah.
Thank you so much. And thank you also, Anne, for sharing your discussion in the group. Is there anybody else who wants to talk a little bit about what you discussed in your group?
We talked about, I don't know, Anya, feel free to jump in as well. I think we talked a little bit about, like first we talked about kind of challenges where we might have actually identified who we would want to solve the problem before we identified the problem. So it's that kind of like making sure that if there is the problem, or do we already know who we want to fix it, in which case it might be more beneficial for us to actually go out and work with them directly rather than having this open competition. And then we talked about and Anya and Björn and feel free to jump in, because this is you've got more knowledge of the country than I've got, but we talked about the kind of healthcare system and the kind of a grand challenge within the healthcare system, but with multiple opportunities for kind of challenge prizes that could sit within that space as well, focusing on like democratizing access and localized approaches, you know, rural areas, aging population, things like that, where there are kind of multiple aspects where you could kind of focus a challenge prize in that space. And then we talked a little bit, Björn talked a little bit about the kind of, can't remember how we phrased it, but you might have to phrase it again, but that the kind of execution is obviously detrimental to the success of a challenge prize and also any kind of funding scheme. I guess that if you want to see any kind of real impact, it's all about the design and the execution, really, and making sure that you're really getting the impact back from what it is that you're funding and putting in. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for the great summary. Anya, do you still want to add something?
It's maybe something that I realized how important when the more you define those grand challenges that really get to the root cause of a problem, or the many root causes of the big challenges that we're facing, the more important it is actually to to provide for a research phase, which also maybe is one of the values of such a challenge prize and part of the design, where you really put a lot of emphasis on defining the specific challenges that you want to ask. But in order to be able to do this, you really need to understand the problem in a good way, and that also already brings stakeholders together. And makes them collaborate, I assume. The open question I kept still after our conversation, and I should have probably asked it before, because we were in the room with Björn, who works on impact-linked finance, and also Mark from GLS. I think it would be interesting also to learn a little bit more about outcome-based finance, and you mentioned earlier that the prices are linked to outcome payments. Is there a way that impact-linked finance or outcome-based finance could be integrated in the challenge prize? But maybe I don't want to capture the conversation yet. Maybe that's something also we can leave for later and also share with the rest of the participants, because I can see that we have to close the session very soon.
You can really tell that Anja has hosted the last deep dive. Watching the time. Thank you, Anja. Yeah, that's actually a good point. Maybe we're gonna save that discussion for our next events, and because I'd like to, or we would like to have one last thing to do with you guys. Would love to get some feedback on the event, and then talk a little bit more about the next deep dives, the next topic that we're gonna delve into with experts from the social finance sector. And yeah, for our last point on the agenda, I will give over to Angelika to lead you through.
Right. So the next deep dive, number 3, is on collective transformative finance. So meaning on what kind of finance can actually support complex transformation processes. And then the deep dive number 4 is going to be on public and private co-financing, to see how these can complement each other to finance efficiently for different type of needs. And then deep dive number 5 is going to be on the wholesaler and the ecosystem finance, to see how the building of a finance market for social innovation works, and how market developers and intermediaries can actually play a role in it. So thank you everyone for today. Thanks a lot for the inputs and all the lively discussions, and super interesting also for us to see what aspects and views we can bring into this. And about the deep dives, we're fixing the dates currently, but the number 3 is probably going to be in mid-end of January, but we're surely going to inform you and invite you for the next session. So yeah, thanks a lot again, especially to Caecilie and also Tris, and also to the German speakers who are unfortunately not here anymore. But that was a great session, and we're looking forward to welcoming you in January again. So goodbye.